This is my truth. Tell me the truth. Tell me my truth. Tell me what the truth feels like. This is my truth. Yeah, truth.
So, hello and welcome to this instalment of Fishing for the Truth. Today, I'm joined by lovely Alice. We work together at the Novello Theatre in London, and Alice was the first person, after I posted my introductory video to tell people what this series of video blogs was going to be about. Alice was the first person who came up to me, didn't you, and said, I'll talk.
I would love to, yeah.
I'd love to.
Yeah, I think it's a great platform to...
Which I was so touched about. It's taken us a few weeks to kind of do it, but we're here today, and tell everybody what it is that you want to raise awareness about today and what you want to talk about.
Early onset Alzheimer's. So obviously a lot of people know what dementia is and what Alzheimer's is, but not a lot of people are aware that it affects people from a younger age, and there's an actual specific thing called early onset Alzheimer's.
So for anybody who doesn't know, because I've heard of dementia and I've heard of Alzheimer's, but I don't really know what's the difference. I don't really know an awful lot about
simply that it affects people from a younger age. So I mean, I've watched a few documentaries on, and there was a man diagnosed at the age of 30 with early onset Alzheimer's.
Oh, okay. So is dementia something normally associated with people who are older? Or?
Dementia is the umbrella term.
Ah, okay.
And there are lots of different forms of it.
Right.
My dad has got Alzheimer's, early onset.
So that's your connection with this particular topic.
Mm-hmm.
So, how old's your dad?
He's now 58, 59.
Okay, and how old was he? Do you remember when you first started sort of seeing
it? He was around 52.
Gosh, that is young. Or
53 when he was diagnosed. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And had it taken a while to get to that point of diagnosis?
Yeah, there had been a lot of, he hadn't been able to work, and he had been signed off with stress, and while all these things were while he was trying to be diagnosed, and the last thing we thought it was Alzheimer's, because, in our mind, we were very naive to the fact that could happen to somebody that young.
Yeah.
So we suspected other things. He was tested for brain tumours, and
so what were the early symptoms? What?
Like forgetfulness.
Okay.
And the symptoms of stress and anxiety. So, just very overwhelmed. He would get angry over small things. Because he was a fire safety officer.
Right.
Obviously, his job was quite taxing, and and he had been doing it for years. He was a fireman to start with, and then a fire safety officer. And I think his colleagues were noticing that he wasn't himself. And he wasn't able to deal with the stress of work.
Right.
And he would get very frustrated about things that he couldn't do anymore. And we all noticed a lack of. He wasn't really very in touch with his emotions anymore, and he wasn't able to communicate the way that he felt. Okay. He didn't really understand the way that he felt.
Right.
And and that was when he was signed off with stress.
I was going to say, because those could be symptoms of depression, or...
Exactly. A lot of people thought that that's what it was.
Right.
And that he just needed some time out, because he'd been working hard for a long time. And he had all of these tests done, and for a long time they were like, it could, prepare yourselves, it could possibly be a brain tumour, which would have required, operation and things, which it's a horrible thing to say, but sometimes I think to myself, it might have been easier,
right? Because
there is a cure, or there is a procedure in place,
right,
to cure a brain tumour, whereas.
Yeah, unless, obviously, worst case scenario, unless it's inoperable. But for the most part, you're right, there's a...
But with Alzheimer's, there really isn't. There's a lot of... I mean, this year especially, there are a lot of trials and tests going on and things, but there is no cure.
Right.
So when we found out that it was that was... I had no idea. I was like, that's for old people.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so for my family, that was a massive shock.
And that was, when was he diagnosed?
That was, I can't remember specifically the year, but he was around 52 or 53.
Okay. And how did he respond to the diagnosis?
It was, not well at all.
Yeah.
He was he went into a state of depression.
Yeah.
And just wasn't able to cope with it. He's very angry. And they said to us that would always be the initial thing is anger, and a lot of frustration, and he was very difficult to talk to, and because I don't think, I mean, I tried to put myself in his shoes, being told that, you know, you're not going anywhere, but, you know,
you're going somewhere.
Your mental state is, but physically you're fit and well enough to do things, and I remember watching him do things, and you would be able to see that something so simple as making a cup of tea, I mean, it's a lot worse now, he just can't compute where does the mug go in relation to the water, and I've boiled the kettle, he just can't, whereas obviously to us that's second nature, and to him a couple of years ago. So yeah, it's such a bizarre disease that people, and I think my main thing, having, you know, because before this I was so naive to it, is I want to help people make life for people with Alzheimer's and early onset Alzheimer's especially easier. Okay. In terms of just being a bit more vigilant and a bit more patient and understanding with someone, a stranger, because you don't know what they're going through, because my dad looks like you know, he looks fit as a fiddle, he's fine, and there have been a lot of
external signs, I guess.
Not at all. There have been a lot of times when my sister and I, or my brother and I, have been with my dad, and we could easily be very embarrassed by the way that he is. Right. But actually, because I think a lot of other people, that he speaks to strangers, he says slightly inappropriate things sometimes, which to him aren't inappropriate. He relates to children really well because he doesn't feel judged, and if he gets anything wrong,
that's so interesting,
he doesn't feel like he'll be embarrassed. So
because children don't judge, do they?
No, not at all.
They so take you exactly for as you are, not for how they think you should be.
No, exactly. And it's always the parents who are like, oh, who's this strange man speaking to our child? But to my dad, that's like, oh, I can actually talk to someone, and you know. So I think, and I wish I could have had someone to say to me before. I wish it hadn't taken this for me to understand how we should be around people. But yeah, it's just like where we went shoe shopping, and he's not able to just sit and be in social situations because he feels like he's going to do something wrong and he feels uncomfortable. Okay. So he will say things and try and make a joke, and I just remember this lady working in the shoe shop. She was just, and I don't blame her, but she was just very slightly judgmental of him, and almost like, stop it, I'm trying to do my job.
Like he's an inconvenience.
Yeah, and obviously that makes Megan and I, my sister, feel slightly uncomfortable because we're like, oh, don't worry, Dad, and you're trying to make the situation less awkward, but it's such a strange thing to adapt to. But I think it's so important, like if somebody says hello to you in the street, and which is often what my dad does, just picks a stranger to speak to, then, you know, give them your time if you can, because you don't know whether that will make them feel accepted or comfortable for the rest of the day.
That's quite a valuable thing, I guess, through life in general. Really, how we treat other people, and Were you in this room when I was saying about that podcast that I'd listened to by the lady, Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, the lady who had a stroke?
Yeah,
the neuroscientist. Yeah. She's a brain scientist, and she'd had a stroke, and she was completely debilitated, but she could still sense and understand people's energy, even though she didn't know what they were saying. I think she said when she tried to call her friend when she knew she was in trouble, she said that he sounded to her on the phone like a Labrador. Like, she couldn't understand words, she couldn't understand language, she had no sense of her own ego, no sense of who she was, no sense of who anybody else was, no sense of anything except pure energy. So when people came into the room to treat her or to monitor her, she knew straight away. And she said there was one woman, a specialist, who came in, she said, and she spoke to me and she knew that I was wounded, not stupid. And that's the thing.
Yes.
And she's the woman who has that amazing quote saying, I'll paraphrase, saying, be responsible for the energy you bring into a space.
Oh, it's so true.
And that makes me think of your dad. It makes me think of, gosh, anybody, the elderly, the young, just anybody.
Yeah.
Be aware of be responsible for your energy, because people they're not stupid.
No.
And it's amazing what they will sense when they don't appear to know anything or to understand anything. They will still be receptive to that.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that really applies to like that kind of umbrella of like invisible illness.
Yeah.
Because like obviously there are a million illnesses that come under that. Like my friend Jess suffers from Crohn's disease.
Right.
And she never really looks sick to us from an outsider's perspective, but actually sometimes she is really poorly, and when people sort of look at you and make a judgment and say, well, you're fine, and it's just having that like deeper understanding that somebody might, you know, just because they look fine, it might not be the case. Everybody's got that little struggle, so like being responsible for the energy that you bring, and giving people your time and understanding before you make a rash judgment, because I know I am a culprit of that.
I think we all, I think it's kind of human nature, and it's not necessarily something we're proud of, but we all do it without even realising. In a split second when we see somebody, we've already started to have a preconceived idea of who they are.
And I guess it's all to do with our protecting ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know what it is. I just...
Yeah,
I just know that until you catch yourself and make a choice, because it is a choice how you respond to people, and you know, you can change that. But in a split second, before you're aware of it, you've already started to define people, which is... So, you've got how many siblings?
I've got an older brother and a younger sister.
And has it changed the dynamic between you, or the dynamic within the family, or?
Strangely, it has brought us closer together as siblings. I mean, I was very lucky anyway, we all get on so well. But it is difficult because my dad lives in Bognor, which is obviously like an hour and a half on a train from London.
Okay.
And my sister lives down there, but she doesn't drive, and he has a wonderful lady who is with him all the time and makes sure that he's here, there and wherever he needs to be.
Right.
But it is very difficult to keep in touch because phone conversations, he doesn't have a mobile phone anymore because that was too much to comprehend.
Right.
We had a whole thing of him, it's just, I think it's very overwhelming because he just can't, there's too much going on and he couldn't do it anymore basically.
Yeah.
So we got rid of his phone and he's now got an old school like wire phone. Yeah, because I think that's in his long term, so he remembers how to use that perfectly fine. Yeah. Which is really interesting, but still I think a phone conversation is really difficult to comprehend because he gets lost, and when he can't see your face to talk to you, I think that's quite difficult.
Right.
so we do call him whenever we can, but it's much better to see him, which is difficult because my brother and I both work up here, and if I had it my way I would, you know, be with him every day, but it's difficult. So, and in terms of whenever I do see him, I always notice something else that's gone,
right,
or something else that's slipped a little bit, which is tough. And my little sister sees him a lot more than we do, my brother and I, and so to her, she can't really see the changes as much as we do. But the one thing that really struck me the last time I went home was that my brother plays the guitar,
right,
and my dad was having a bit of a stressed day, and he was stumbling over his words and couldn't quite. We could tell he wasn't very calm, and I think when we go round to his, he feels the need to sort of make it, you know, cater after us and make sure we're all right, but he can't, and so he'll say, do you want a cup of tea, and then go into the kitchen and come back, and then go back into the kitchen, and what am I doing again, and then we'll make the tea, and then he'll forget that it's made, and I think he was just a bit stressed. And my brother, he put on some old records from my dad's, and my dad was like, oh Sam, can you play this on the guitar? And my brother was like, yes. So he started playing You've Got a Friend in Me, and my dad sang every single word to that song.
Wow.
He didn't stumble, he didn't forget any words, he sang every word, and we just sat there and we were like music is so, I'm gonna get all emotional. Music is so important and powerful, and it really sort of hit home as to I think because that's also in his long term, and it just made him feel so calm, and and he was able to, I mean, my dad can't sing in tune but he sang in tune, and my sister and I were just blown away, and so we spent the whole afternoon with Sam playing different songs, and Dad chose every song and he sang all the words, and it just really made me realise that music is such a powerful thing. And wouldn't it be wonderful if, I know that there are schemes in place, but like old people's homes and rest homes for people, I think music should be a bigger part of
absolutely
that, because it's so powerful.
I wonder why that is. I mean, music has a it's a universal language anyway, isn't it? It has the power to heal and to calm and to, but in this particular instance, I wonder what it is. Is it because of the nostalgia? Is it because of something that taps into another part of his brain?
I think that's it, because I mean, I'm not a scientist or a nurse or anything, but it's the frontal lobe that shrinks with dementia, and so it must tap into some other part of the brain, and it made him feel so good because he felt intelligent, and he felt
amazing.
He felt able to, and
probably felt like him.
Yeah, exactly. And after that, when we were just chatting, you could tell that he was in control. Obviously he was still thinking quite hard about, but he was just in control, and it was really nice to see, really refreshing. So yeah,
that's a big thing then for anyone who might watch this who is experiencing or starting to go down this route. That's something worth remembering if they haven't thought about it already. Absolutely.
And I mean, it might be different because it might be that music was a big part of my dad's life, and so that for him is, but then I don't know,
maybe I experienced something very similar with a really old friend of mine whose dad has, I don't know what to call it, dementia of some, and I hadn't seen him for 20 something years, and I went round to visit them, and he didn't really say very much the whole time, and then we went into the next room and she started playing Beatles songs on the piano.
Oh yeah.
And he sang along.
Yeah.
It was
amazing.
Yeah, it was quite remarkable.
Yeah.
And he had this look, just this peaceful, happy look on his face.
I watched a thing that was on Facebook, and I might be getting this slightly wrong, but I remember it was in an old people's home, and they brought in a piano.
Right.
And I think he was an ex-musician in there, and he hadn't played for years and years. And they kept, you know, every day they'd sit him at the thing, and he'd be, I can't remember how to do it. And then one day they just left him in the room with the piano, and it all came back, and he just played.
So beautiful.
And yeah, it's just happiness, I think, is the one thing it can trigger. Peace and happiness.
So, God, I imagine that all of this must make you acutely aware of time.
Yeah.
And the passing of time, and...
Yeah, and the importance of making every day count. And that's, for me, the most frustrating thing about not living near my dad.
Right.
Because I am constantly thinking, I mean, hopefully he has another 10 years, but you just don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't know when I'm going to call him up and he's going to be like, who?
Yeah.
And I want to be prepared in as much as I can for that, because I know that it's going to happen. But yeah, it's definitely affected my outlook on life, and I've always been quite ambitious, and thanks to my mum and my dad, they've always allowed us to be that way. But yeah, myself and my brother and sister, it has been definitely been a wake-up call to be like, time is precious.
Yeah.
And you just, you have to make the most of it. And I think for my dad as well, he felt that way. He every time we go back, he's got very philosophical.
Okay.
And I was admiring his records that he has, and he'd say, "Oh, take them, Alice, take them." And he's just got this very his attitude has changed in that way, and he wants to give as much as he can while he still can.
Yeah.
And he does these groups in Bognor that are organised by his friend Maggie, which like they do like line dancing for old people. And yeah, he really wants to get involved and help in every way that he can. And he always says to me, it's sad that it takes something like this to make us realise, but it does. And and in a way, I guess, I mean, it's a horrible thing, but you are grateful for that, because every moment I get to spend with him is precious, and I treasure it.
I don't know whether there's any other way of learning those kind of lessons or coming to those conclusions other than living them, because we can be mindful of the fact that time is precious and all the rest of it, but how are we going to really get it until something happens?
I don't
so it's
know.
it wouldn't be your fault or anybody else's fault for thinking, I should have realised this sooner. How do you know until it's something that's tangible and something that's right and literally staring you in the face, you know? Do as a family, or when someone like your dad is diagnosed, do healthcare professionals steer you towards any offer of counselling, or have you ever felt the need for that as a family? Or
it's all a very blurry time of my life. I don't ever remember anyone coming to us children and saying, you know, if you need anyone to talk to. That didn't happen, and if it did happen, I wasn't aware of it.
Right.
And luckily we have each other. Yeah. And I think that was a form of counselling, but we've all dealt with it completely differently. Right. My sister, and I obviously am not them, so I can't really speak on behalf of them, but I know from being with them, my sister struggled a lot because she was at home, she had it there in front of her. Right. She felt a lot of responsibility for my dad because my mum and dad are separated. Right. And yeah, my sister hasn't got her independence completely now yet, because she can't drive, and so yeah, she felt a lot of responsibility and quite helpless. She didn't know how, and she obviously is trying to juggle her studies at the same time, and trying to pursue her dream. And Megan and I relate a lot in that way, in that we struggle to find the balance between feeling guilty because we're living our dream and you know, trying to make a living, but also finding time to spend with Dad, because we know that he would want us to do the things, and you know, and every time we speak to him he always says you've got to keep working hard and stuff, but you do have a feeling of guilt.
You must feel torn, like you just literally want to separate yourself into two.
Yeah.
Because you want to be there, but you want to be, like you say, living your life as well.
Yeah, because, and I would have liked someone who is experienced with these kind of situations to speak to us and say, look, this is the amount of help you should be giving your dad, and the rest, you know, you should, do you know what I mean? Because there's never, and we're always, I mean, luckily he has this amazing woman, Maggie, who is fantastic and gives all her time to him, but we do think sometimes, what if she's had enough and she doesn't want to be there anymore, she can't be there anymore, you know, what will we do? And in terms of, there was an Alzheimer's nurse who dealt with my dad, and I remember once being given his number, and you know, he said call me if you need anything.
Right.
But other than that, there haven't been.
I feel like there should be I know that individuals themselves can't do it because they're busy with other patients, but I feel like there should be some kind of resources pack or something.
And guidance.
Just something.
Yeah.
At least as it doesn't do it all for you, but at least it's a place to start. Because for people who don't maybe have anybody else in their family they can talk to, or who feel very isolated on their own with it all, how are they supposed to know where to start, you know? Yeah,
and I also still feel a little bit like I don't really know what to expect, and I don't know if there's a medication that we could be getting, a trial that we could be getting my dad on, and do you know what I mean? I don't know whether that's my responsibility to find that for him, and I think my brother feels the same, you know, he knows that there's nothing we can do, but he wonders if we should be instigating help or asking for help from other people.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And there isn't really, or if there is, I don't know about it.
Does your dad have a sort of regular checkups, or?
Yeah, he does, but it's with his GP.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like I do, and I should maybe take more of a responsibility for that side of things and look into it more. But it is difficult when you have to juggle your own life.
Yeah, and also you're not an expert in this.
No.
It's new for you, and how are you supposed to know where to start with all of that?
Yeah.
That's interesting. That would be something, I don't know, that would be something for the health system to be mindful of, I think.
Yeah, and I don't know if there are sort of, I don't know what you would call them, like care groups for the families of.
I bet there are, you know.
There must be.
There are, I mean, before I post this video, if I find any or helplines, or I'll put them on the screen, but because there are groups for virtually everything nowadays, and it's all out there. It's just, it would be helpful, because sometimes when you're especially when someone's just been diagnosed, no matter what it is, when you're in the midst of that, you can't really think about anything else or being proactive in any other way, because you're just so consumed by the news.
Yeah.
So that's why it would help to be given some kind of
definitely
some starting point or way forward. Is there anything else within all of this that you've learnt about? Has it changed you in any other ways, or have you learnt anything about yourself that you weren't already aware of? Or
I think it just made me it just made me stop, and because life for our family was busy, very busy, and I think my dad was so proud of the fact that he worked for us. That was what he did. He worked hard, and he brought the money in, and he made sure that we were so lucky we were able to go to a school which we all really wanted to go to, and that was thanks to my mum and my dad, and I think when that was taken away from him, we all watched that, you know, he lost his pride, he lost his self-belief, he lost his manhood, and I think it made all of us stop and take a breath and be like, whoa, you know, you do need time in your life to slow down.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have that as kids. We were here, there, at all the clubs and doing all the things, and which is fantastic, and I'm very grateful for opportunities. But yeah, I think more than anything, it made us slow down and treasure the little things and the family time. And
like you said earlier, that's actually such a gift, but it's sad that it has to be at that cost. But valuable, I guess, for anybody to be mindful of trying to find some kind of balance.
Yeah, balance is a good word. Yeah, because obviously, like I said, I think us as kids, we were very ambitious, and we wanted to do everything, and that was only because we were told that we could.
Yeah.
And which is fantastic. But yeah, for something major like that to happen in our lives was kind of like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know, it really made us think. And for me personally, as a person, I've always been quite impatient.
Right.
And I think it's given, and my best friend Lucy I always looked at her and I thought, I hope one day I can be patient like you, because she has a younger brother who has autism, and he has severe autism.
Right.
And I think, I'm not saying that she wasn't born with that quality, because I believe she was, because her parents are like that and her brother's like that. But yeah, I always looked at her and I thought, I wonder if having William as a brother, I mean, he's fantastic, but they do have to have a lot of patience with him,
right?
And understanding in time. And I always used to go around their house and be like, oh, I wish I could be like you, and I do feel that in myself, since my dad was diagnosed, I have found a bit more patience,
right? And
yeah, and a bit more, and the ability to understand things better. So as horrible as it is, I think that's a positive thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think my sister would say the same.
Right. It's funny, isn't it? Because I guess we're conditioned to kind of think, seize the day and carpe diem, which makes you think, do everything, suck the marrow out of life, you know.
And I still do.
But actually, which is great. But then also seizing the day can also be about being still. Yeah. It doesn't have to necessarily mean
do everything in one day. And
it's so interesting. If you'd have been watching this when all of this kind of came to the forefront and your dad was diagnosed, and what would you have wanted the person on the screen to say? What would you have wanted to hear, or what would you have found helpful to know?
That it will get easier, in that, you know, my dad has found an acceptance and a peace with himself. I mean, he gets frustrated still on a daily basis, but I think he's got to a stage now where he's just, you know, he's realised, he's held his hands up and he's realised that there is nothing he can do apart from me. And so I would say, yeah, just trust and value every single second, and be there for that person as much as you can. Yeah. And I still sometimes have to remind myself that now, you know, little things like, oh, should I go to this thing at the weekend, or should I go home and spend a day with my dad? I probably should do that. And then when I do, I'm like, thank God I did that, because it's so nice. And I think it's very easy to cower away from it, especially as I live a totally separate life up here. It's easy to be like, I haven't got time to call my dad. It's just, whereas actually that's fear that's stopping me, because I'm afraid of what will be there at the end of the phone. Yeah. Whereas actually I always feel better, and I know that it means a lot to him to just hear your voice for 20 minutes on the phone.
That's so interesting, and I bet that's going to be so valuable that people will be able to relate to that fear.
Yeah,
You
it's
know.
strange how fear always finds a way. But yeah, treasure the moments.
Oh, so I think you're amazing, and thank you very much for saying that you wanted to talk about it, because it's massive, and I can't understand because I'm not going through this. But when I try to be empathetic, or it must be really difficult. It must be really difficult, and I think you're remarkable because you're a lovely person, and it just can't be easy. It can't be easy.
It is tough. And yeah, thank you for letting me talk about it, because I feel like sometimes it's like the elephant in the room.
Right.
And sometimes I feel like I have to talk about it.
Yeah. It's a massive part of your life, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's your dad. You know?
And if it can make anybody else, just take a minute to think about, having a bit more understanding and a bit more patience, or if anybody is in a similar situation, because obviously there are thousands of people that will be, unfortunately, then maybe they can relate to and feel like they're not on their own.
Yeah, that they're not the only person who feels the way they do, or to not feel guilty for feeling the way they do, because it's completely normal. That's brilliant. Is there anything else you want to say?
I just want to mention the Alzheimer's Society.
Yes.
They are absolutely fantastic. I've not managed to do as many things as I want to, but I've done the memory walk that they do, which raises money for the Alzheimer's Society, and it's brilliant.
Where did you do that?
So I did one in London, and I did one down south, but they have them all over the UK.
Okay.
And it's just a walk, and loads of people turn up. There's music playing. They do a fun little warm-up thing at the beginning, and then it's just a great feel. And it's not like you have to train for it or practice, so you can just rock up and you get sponsored, obviously, and then all the money goes to charity.
How far did you walk?
I think we did a 5k first and then a 10k second. But yeah, it's really wonderful, and it's something that my dad can take part in as well, and feel like he's doing his bit as well. So
that must be quite a powerful thing to be part of, to have everybody, like any event like that, to have everybody there for a common good, and who's clearly all connected with it in some way, shape or form. And
they have a little memory tree where you can write on a piece of paper and hang it on the tree.
Oh, so lovely.
Yeah, it's
the
so
Alzheimer's
nice.
Society.
Yeah, they do lots of different.
I will put their web address on the screen.
Awesome.
Brilliant. How did you find out about them? Did somebody tell you, or did you?
I just looked it up because my friend Lucy and I were like, we want to do something, because she does a lot of charity things, and I was like, I wonder if there's anything for dementia, and we came across Dementia Friends UK, I think it's called, as well, which you basically sign up to become a dementia friend, and they send you a little pack in the post, and you get a little badge. And it basically, they send you things through email or post, basically about updates on research and events that they're doing as well. So they're great too, and that's how I found out about the Alzheimer's Society.
Sounds crazy to me that wouldn't be a society or a place that you would have been made aware of straight away.
I know,
but it wasn't. But hopefully that will change. But
yeah. And like you say, in the midst of it all, I think, it was such a whirlwind of 3 years that it went on for. That our first instinct when he was diagnosed was just to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would have been nice to be approached.
Yeah.
By some form of support.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you, my lovely.
Thanks for having me.
This is my truth. Tell me the truth. Tell me my truth. Tell me what the truth feels like. This is my truth. Yeah, truth. This is my truth. Tell me the truth.